For you guys who've had a good week and you guys who've had a bad week, there's one thing that I love about our God, that regardless if you're having a great week or you're having kind of a rough week, man, God is still on the throne. He's still in control. He's still doing miracles today. And man, if we give him the throne of our lives and we put him first above everything, he's going to take us places we never would have imagined. Whether good things are happening to you or bad things, man, God's going to bring you through it, and he has a plan for your life. Man, and the cool thing about our God is that he brings dead things back to life. He brings hope to hopeless situations, and he can take broken pieces in your life and make something beautiful out of it. And I'm really grateful because when I was a goofy freshman kid in 2009, I'm so grateful that God took a goofy freshman like me and he changed my life and he rewrote my story. And on that day, about 12 years ago, I left Satan's team and I joined God's team. But man, it wasn't always this way. I remember before I was a Christian and I gave my life to Christ, man, I was really concerned about doing things my way. Like, I didn't want to do things God's way. I wanted to make myself happy. I was focusing on me all the time. I put my needs above the needs of others. And man, any chance I could get, I was always seeking to do things my way. And I always thought my ways were better than other people's ways. And sometimes I even thought my ways were better than God's way. And it was because I didn't want to give up control of my life. So, who here's ever been in a group project before at school? Quite a few of you? Okay, so there's two types of people when it comes to doing group projects, right? There's the person who does all the work, and then there's the person who does none of the work. So if you're the person who does all the work, raise your hand. What if you're the person who does none of the work? Any people do none of the work? All right, I kind of could have guessed Landon over here, but some of y'all are surprised me. So you're the person who does none of the work. That's okay. That's all right. So when it comes to group projects, right, you're one of those two people, and for me, I was the person who felt like I always wanted to be in control. I don't know if we had this meme up here, but I had this meme I saw online. It says, when I die, I want my group project members to lower me into my grave so they can let me down one last time. But anyways, I was the dude that I kind of took control. I didn't even let other people have a chance because I felt like if I was in control, I got to do things my way. And I was afraid that if I let other people do stuff in the project, they would do things their way. And if I wanted an A, they might do C quality work. So I would be the person in the group project who would do everything. It's because I didn't want to give up control. And for some of us, it's a lot worse than just like a group project. Some of us, man, we hate giving up control because we have some major trust issues in our lives. Maybe you've had a really close friend who you trusted and you guys were just tight, but then they backstabbed you. They went behind your back and they said something. Maybe you had a parent or someone important in your life, an adult in your life, who said they were going to show up to your game or your rehearsal, and then they didn't show up when they promised you they would be there. Maybe you've been bullied before or cyberbullied, and you were even embarrassed to like show your face at school. Maybe it was an unhealthy relationship and you thought it was going to be a great friendship, but they took you down a road that you wish you hadn't had gone down and you're suffering the consequences of that. Or maybe you just have a rough home life. Things at home just aren't great right now and you have broken trust in your life. And for you, control, doing things your way, is comfort to you. It makes you feel safe. It makes you feel secure. And you have a real fear, not that you'll get a certain grade on a group project. You have a fear that if you were to give some control to God, if you were to do things Jesus' way, maybe you're a little afraid that Jesus would let you down, like so many other people in your life have. Guys, I struggled with some of those same things growing up. I struggled with, not all of them, but I definitely struggled with trusting others and letting other people have control of my life. But it wasn't until I started to give up some control to others and give up control to God that I truly felt like, man, there was freedom in my life. It was one of the most freeing things I've ever experienced. And I know some of us in here, we don't want to give up control to God because we're worried he might take something away from us that we like. Guys, I need you to understand this. When God asks us to give up control, he's not trying to take something good away from us. He's trying to take the weight of the world off of us. We need to understand this. When we're giving control to God, he's not taking away something that we like. He's trying to take the burdens. Imagine you're carrying a heavy weight on your shoulders, and Jesus is like, let me take that for you. I'm reminded of the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 11. It should be on the screen behind me, but it says this. Jesus says this to a crowd of people. He says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and my burden that I give you is light." Guys, that's what God wants for you. He wants you to do things his way, not because he wants to take something good away from you, but he wants to give you peace. He wants to give you rest. He has amazing plans for your life. He wants to take you places you never could have imagined, and he wants to take the burdens of the world off of you. That's what God wants for your life, but Satan wants the exact opposite. Satan wants you to build a wall around yourself. He wants you to kind of turtle up and put a shell up, and he doesn't want you to let anybody else into your life. He wants you to be afraid of trusting God because he knows that God is the only person who can truly bring you peace and joy, and he's going to try to keep you to yourself. And he's going to try to get you to buy into the lie that my way is better. That's the lie we're talking about today, is my way is better. Man, maybe it looks like in your life, like how I do things is better than someone else, and you've gotten into conflict on your basketball team. Maybe you've gotten in conflict even with a coach because you think you should do something different, and you think you know better than that person. Maybe it's in drama club, and you tell your director, like, hey, I would rather do the scene like this, but they want you to do it a different way, and you argue with them. Maybe it's in a group project, like I said earlier. Maybe it's in some area of your life you say, hey, my way is better, and my needs and my wants are more important than someone else's. And you feel like you know better than everyone else. That's what Satan wants you to buy into. And a lot of times what he gets you to do is say, I don't trust these people, so I'm going to be a loner. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to live life by myself. I'm not going to trust others, and I'm not going to trust God. That's what Satan wants you to buy into. And guys, this isn't anything new. In the very beginning of the Bible, what's the very first story in the Bible? Who remembers? What is it? Anyone shout it out if you know it. Adam and Eve, that's right. It's the very first story in the Bible. The very first two people, Adam and Eve, are in the garden. And the crazy part about that story that you might not have known or heard in Sunday school is that Adam and Eve had walks with God in the garden. Like, imagine if you could walk down the sidewalk in your neighborhood and Jesus, like, walked with you physically, like, beside you. Like, how crazy and mind-blowing is that? Because we're used to this spiritual relationship with Christ. But wouldn't it be really cool if he was, like, right beside us walking down the sidewalk and you got to hang out, tell him about your day. He would encourage you. He would bless you. Like, man, that just blows my mind that Adam and Eve had this kind of relationship with God. But they still were tempted by Satan and believed that my way is better than God's way. And they eat of the fruit that God commands them not to. And sin enters our world. And that's why we have disease. That's why we have sickness. That's why people do bad things and we struggle between right and wrong. And that is why sin has entered into our world, because we thought our way is better than God's way. This is a lie that Satan tried to tell Adam and Eve from the very beginning. And even through all of that, even through it all, God is like, hey, I want to reach out. I want to restore my relationship with mankind. And he made a rescue mission for us. And we know that's through Jesus. But in the Old Testament, God used the people of Israel. He made his own chosen nation called Israel, the Jews. And he wanted to use them to be a light to everyone else. Kind of like you and I are called to be a light for Jesus, God was calling Israel to be a light, to say this, when you look at Israel, this is what it looks like to go God's way, to do things God's way, not our own way. But they really struggled to live that mission out that God had given them, just like you and I. And this is what I want you guys to get today, is that it's hard to give up our own ways for God's ways. It's hard to give up our own ways for God's ways. It's really difficult. And the people of Israel, they went through this struggle just like anyone else. And this nation that was supposed to be a light to the lost people ended up falling into the same sins. And it's described in the book of Isaiah. I'm going to read this Bible verse for you. It's on the screen behind me. It says this: I, the Lord, have called you to demonstrate my righteousness, my perfection, my goodness. And I will take you by the hand and guard you, and you will be a light to guide the nations. You will open the eyes of the blind. You will set captives free from prison, releasing those who sit in dark dungeons. And I will make you a light to the Gentiles, basically to the whole world. And you will bring my salvation to the ends of the earth. So we see that God, man, he's calling Israel to something higher. He's saying like, man, you're going to impact the whole world for my name's sake. You're going to bring my kingdom to earth, and you're going to change people's lives. People are going to start doing things instead of their way. They're going to do things God's way, and lives are going to be changed. And I love that verse where he's like, man, dark dungeons and prisoners. Like, man, there's people on this planet who are slaves to sin, and God was wanting to set them free through the people of Israel. But instead of living up to what God wanted them to live up to, they chose their own way. And we see that they get trapped in this cycle of sin over and over again. And I have a picture of it. This is what the sin cycle in the Old Testament looks like. We see at the top here that the people of Israel, they're doing things God's way, and they're being blessed, and they're experiencing true joy, and they're living on mission. Maybe you feel like that when you live for Jesus. But then they begin to be tempted by Satan, and they start to do things their own way. They start to sin. They start to choose other things over God. They start to say, my way is better than God's way. And because of that, they have consequences for their action, and God gives them a punishment for their sins. And usually it looked like a different nation like Egypt or Babylon coming in and capturing them and defeating them and making them slaves. And then when they were slaves and they're living with the consequences of their action, they repent and they're like, God, please deliver us, please save us. We're sorry we chose our own way over your way. And God would forgive them and he would set them free and they would be blessed again. And then down the line somewhere, they do it again. They sin again. And you see through the Old Testament, Israel going through this cycle of sin. And man, when I read this cycle of sin that happens with the people of Israel over and over again, I'm like, man, they're so dumb. Like, they're so dumb. How could they experience God's blessings? How could they, enjoy the blessings God has for them and the mission and the purpose in life that God has for them? How could they just totally blow it? How could they just totally walk away and possibly think that my way is better than God's way? And when I was reading about this, my eyes were open because I realized I do the exact same thing. And chances are you probably do the exact same thing as well, because Jesus promises us rich blessings. He promised us through his death on the cross forgiveness of sin, a purpose for a new future. And just like Israel, we have all these blessings that God gives us, eternal life in heaven, promised to us, and we blow it. We say, you know what, I've done things God's way for a while. You get tempted, you start to do things your way again. You buy into the lie that your way is better. And because of that, you get into unhealthy relationships, and we choose entertainment over God. We choose maybe pride over God. We choose popularity or belittling others to make yourself look good over God's way. We choose money and stuff over God's way. And at the end of the day, all these things leave us thirsty, they leave us dry. When Jesus, the living water, like we talked about last week, is standing right in front of you, yet we continue to choose our way over God's way. And because of that, we might have consequences for our actions. If it might look like a toxic relationship that you never should have been in. It might look like envy. It could look like anger or depression. And there might be consequences and punishments for the times that we fall into sin. And when we reap the consequences for our mistakes, sometimes we cry out to God for help and he delivers us. And we're like, you know what? I'm going to start going to youth group again. I'm going to start living for God again. I'm going to start praying and reading my Bible. And I'm going to make a commitment to God to live his way. And then we notice that God brings us out of the punishments of our sins. But then down the line, we get tempted again. And just like Israel, we can get stuck in this sin cycle. And when we're in this sin cycle, it can be super hard to get out. It's like a hamster wheel. We can feel trapped in it. There's no way out. And it just feels like we're going to be stuck in it forever. And because of this sin cycle, because we keep messing up and we keep getting punished, it feels like we're getting knocked down, and you might look to God and even get a little angry at him and be like, God, why is this happening to me? Guys, sometimes God knocks us down so that we can look up to him. Sometimes God allows us to be knocked down so that we can look up to him. Because when we're stuck in the cycle of sin and we're frustrated because we feel like we can never get out of this hamster wheel, we feel stuck, sometimes the only way to break us free from the cycle of sin is for God to give us a wake-up call in our life, for God to allow us to take a hit and get knocked down and realize, wow, I got to change the way that I'm living. And when this happens, sometimes we get mad at God, but man, the reality is God wants you to be free. He's trying to get you to realize, wow, I can't keep living this way. One of the biggest wake-up call stories I ever heard that was just a huge impact on my life was about an evangelist. And who knows what an evangelist is? Anybody remember or know? What's an evangelist? Yeah, it's somebody who goes around sharing Jesus, and sometimes think of people like Billy Graham, who goes into football stadiums preaching to thousands of people. There was a dude named Clayton who's from Indiana, and he went around to tons of schools sharing Jesus, and man, he was big for a while, but before he was a Christian and before he shared Jesus with people, he was living a life of sin, and he was living for himself. He was doing things his way. And back when he was in high school, he had an older brother who did college ministry, and he was sharing Jesus with college students. He was on fire for God. And Clayton would look at his older brother and be like, you know, when I get older one day, then I'll start living for God like my older brother. But for now, I want to have fun. I have all the time in the world. I want to do things my way. And he was partying. He was living it up. And one day, he was driving home from school with his older brother. His older brother was driving, and it was a snowy day, and they were going across an icy bridge. I got like a picture up here. This isn't the exact bridge, but I just want you to get that picture in your mind. And they're driving home over an icy bridge, and as they're driving, the wheels on the tires start sliding. They lose traction, and they slide to the other side of the road, and there's a semi-truck heading straight for them. And in that moment, he said that everything slowed down, and he thought to himself, maybe I don't have as much time as I thought I had. And he was like, maybe, is this the end of my life? I chose my ways over God's ways. And he was like, God, please save me. This all happened in like the instance of a second. He thought all these things and prayed like, God, please save me. And the car somehow regained control. And then it was sliding back on the other side of the road towards the guardrail. And he's like, oh no, are we going to smash through this guardrail now on the other side of the road? And he's just praying. He's lifting up his hands, and they smash into the guardrail, but they don't fall over the edge. So they get out of the car, they're dazed and confused. They're like, what's going on? They're just all dizzy. And when they look up in the sky, there's snow coming down, but there's these little pieces of paper flying down too. And they're like, what is this? And he grabs one of them out of the air, and he sees that it's a Bible tract. And if you don't know what a Bible tract is, it's like a little booklet that basically some people use to share Jesus with people. It just has the story about how Jesus came and died for our sins. They were falling from the sky. And it sounds crazy, but basically, his older brother had a box of Bible tracts from his college ministry in the back of his trunk. And when they were spinning around, all of them flew up in the air, and the trunk came open. And basically, he was like, wow, like this was my wake-up call. Like God, I can't think of a more specific wake-up call than that for God to say, hey, you don't know how much time you have left, but you need to start doing things my way. Guys, sometimes God allows us to be knocked down so we can look up to him and snap out of it, so we can break free from the sin cycle of doing things our way, and we can see that his ways are better. Man, like how many times do I have to do things my way to realize it's just not as good as God's way? It's just not going to work out for me like Jesus' way. And God doesn't want you to be stuck and get comfortable in the sin cycle. He wants to set you free. So where have you said in your life, my way is better? Where have you said in your life that you're just like, man, I'm going away from God's way. I'm just wanting to do things for myself? Because true freedom comes when we say, God, and take my life. Rewrite my story. I'm letting go of control. I'm giving you control of my life. And guys, it was as soon as I did that for God that he rewrote my story back in 2009 as a freshman in high school. He changed everything. I was in these same seats you were in youth group, and God got a hold of my heart. And he's taken me on amazing journeys that I never would have gone on if I didn't do things his way. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of students give their life to Jesus and have their lives changed. I've gotten the privilege to go to other countries across the world to see Jesus changing people's lives there and seeing things that, honestly, if I wasn't trusting God, I would have never had the courage to go to those places because they were kind of scary. But I trusted God, and man, he's shown me some amazing things because I gave him control of my life, and I'm like, man, it's crazy to think if I would have just kept doing things my way, I never would have gotten to experience those things. I never would have gotten to see Jesus work in such powerful ways in so many people's lives. Man, I could have settled for less. And guys, today, Satan wants you to settle. He wants you to settle for your ways over God's ways. But guys, my prayer for you this morning is that you don't settle, but you choose God's way because it's so much better than anything else we can ask or imagine. So I'm reminded of the lyrics of one of my favorite songs from one of my favorite bands, Hillsong Young and Free. And they have this song called Let Go that I really like. But there's these words in there that stuck out to me when I was writing this message. And it was, when I let go, then I found life. A lot of times we feel like we're holding on to our life. In fact, Jesus says, if you hold on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my name's sake, you will find it. Like, it seems to not make sense in our heads, but the reality is this: when I let go, I found life. So my question to you is, will you let go of your ways today and be like, God, rewrite my story. I'm letting go of control. I want to start doing things your way. I don't have to wait for a wake-up call to know that today I can do things your way over mine. So what's going to happen is I'm going to pray, and during this prayer, okay, if you want to make that commitment today, what I want you to do is say, I want you to raise your hand. Everyone's going to have their eyes closed, they're going to have their heads bowed. It's basically just between you and God saying, God, I've been doing things my way for too long now, but between you and me, God, no one looking around, I want to start doing things your way. All right, everyone, close your eyes, bow your head. Lord Jesus, I just want to thank you for how good you are, God. God, I'm thank you that when I was a student in the same chairs as these students, that you got a hold of my heart and you changed my life and you showed me that your way is better. So God, my prayer this morning is that you would just choose to show them the exact same thing, that they could see that your way is better, God, and just to see the amazing plans you have for them. God, if there's anyone here buying into Satan's lie that my way is better, I pray that you set them free from that lie in the name of Jesus right this moment. And that they would have the courage to say, God, your way is better, and I want to start living for you and not myself. We pray these things in your son's name. Amen.
I'll probably say, though, like my favorite memory, like the funniest one at least, in recent times, would probably be when we did the tortilla slap thing. Like, me and Donovan were on the stage. Bro smacked me with a tortilla, so I deliberately spit all of it onto the floor. And then after I did that, I walked off the stage. I walked onto the floor, and I slipped, and I busted my butt on the ground. And after I did that, I had a bruise on my left butt cheek. Goodbye.
My name is Jacob Combs. I'm a senior at Charlestown High School. Well, I started off, I guess I was kind of like falling into the lies of like Satan. And I thought like the way to be a man was to be like I had to be tough all the time, had to tell people like I could, like, I guess beat them up basically. You have to be a tough guy, and that's how you're supposed to be a man. And I was falling into like all of his lies. I was falling into I was angry all the time. I lied to people all the time. I was just like, I wasn't trustworthy. I wasn't dependable. But then Eastside came into my life, and really everything changed. And all the people here, like the community here, is just like changed everything. And that's how God got to me, was through his people. And I came here, and everything started changing. I started doing more stuff for him. I've been on basically 2 mission trips now. I got done with kind of my last one last weekend. I was in Kentucky where the flood hit, and I painted a church. Like, my life has just been, I just felt so much better and so much, like, I guess fuller, and my heart has just been a whole lot better since I started doing things with him and not for the devil. Satan tried to show me that his way was better, but God's way is always better.